You wake slowly, not to bird song, not to warmth, just the cold breath of dawn slipping through a cracked shutter, brushing your face like a sigh you didn't ask for. Your bones feel older than they should. Your back aches from the straw mattress beneath you, flat, lumpy, and generously shared, with fleas, lice, and sometimes your cousin Agnes, who kicks in her sleep. The scent of tallow smoke and sour wool hangs in the air. Outside, a rooster calls like it's doing you a favor. You wish it wouldn't. And yet, this is your life. Or perhaps just a memory. A soft, quiet question lingers in the rafters above your head. What if history erased you? What if your name faded quicker than the rouge on your cheeks, quicker than the last kiss your mother pressed to your forehead before the fever took her? You reach for the sky with tired eyes, but all you see is wood, cracked and sagging. Your world is small, 10 feet across. A cottage, if you're generous. A box, if you're honest. You are a woman in the year 1300, and you are trying to look beautiful. But beauty here doesn't mean health. It means pale. It means clean, even when the rivers run brown. It means hiding what you were born with and showing what you are not. You rise slowly, brushing bits of hay and sleep from your shift. The floor is dirt, always has been. It greets your bare feet with the chill of last night's rain. The hearth is cold, your fingers colder. But there's work to be done, and so much to cover up. You tilt your head toward the tiny scrap of polished metal that passes for a mirror. It's warped, dented. You can barely see yourself in it, which, honestly, is a kindness. Because your face is not yet ready, not pale enough, not smooth enough, not blank enough. In this century, beauty is not about standing out. It's about erasing things. Eyebrows? Gone. Eyelashes? Shaved off. Hairline? Plucked back until your forehead looks like it's thinking too hard. A high forehead means you're noble, or pretending to be. And who isn't pretending? So you sit and begin the ritual. You dip your fingers into a tiny ceramic pot, your most precious possession, worth more than most of your meals this week. Inside is a paste made from vinegar, ground bone, and lead. White as chalk, thick as regret. You spread it gently across your face. It tingles at first, then it burns. But that's how you know it's working. They say it makes you look pure, angelic, untouched by labor, by sun, by suffering. Of course, that's a lie. But lies have always made the best fashion trends. You dab a bit of rouge onto your cheeks, just a touch to suggest you're still alive under all that powder. The color comes from crushed insects. You don't ask which ones, or why they smell like wine and wet copper. As you work, your fingers tremble, not from age, but from hunger. You haven't eaten since yesterday's crust of barley bread. Your beauty is built on sacrifice. So is everyone's. Because here, to be lovely is to be empty. Empty of sweat, of blemish, of body. Empty of the peasant girl you were last year, before someone told you your freckles were low-born. And yet, you do it. Every morning, before the sun finds your unpainted face. You wonder, would anyone remember you if you didn't try so hard to disappear? Outside, the village begins to stir. Hooves clop down the muddy lane. A child cries. A man coughs, deep and wet. Probably the same man who sells miracle powders that smells suspiciously like sawdust and regret. You knew a girl once, Clara, who used to smile so much that the boys called her wind-drunk. She wanted to be beautiful more than anything, said her skin was too loud. So she bought a new salve, one the apothecary said came from Venice. Within a week, her lips turned blue. By the next Sabbath, she stopped smiling altogether. Now her mother prays for her beside a cold grave, still hoping the saints will return what lead took away. But you keep applying your own mixture, because what else can you do? Beauty is your only currency, your only defense, your only chance at marrying someone who doesn't smell like a cheese seller. And deep down, you fear the truth, that the prettier you become, the more invisible you feel. No one talks about that part. They talk about the noble women with their embroidered sleeves and ghostly skin. They don't mention the itching, the peeling, the scars hidden beneath lace. They don't tell you that mercury seeps into the blood like a secret you can't confess. They certainly don't tell you that the Queen of Hungary uses alcohol and herbs to tighten her skin, and that it smells like vinegar-soaked lavender and failure. The rules are simple, even if the pain isn't. If your face is too red, you look poor. If your hands are rough, you work too much. If your teeth are yellow, you smile too often. So you stay silent, still, pale. A ghost before your time. The wind slips in again through the shutter, smelling faintly of pigsty and frost. It lifts a curl of hair you forgot to hide under your coif. You reach for your tweezers. They're dull, but faithful. Today you'll take a little more off the brows. Maybe tomorrow the lashes. After all, nothing says refinement like eyes that look permanently surprised. You wonder if the Virgin Mary ever shaved her hairline. Probably not. But she was born perfect. You were born here. In the distance, the church bell tolls. 6 chimes. Morning Mass. You slip on your shoes, wooden, loud, and wrap a shawl over your shoulders. Your face, though stinging, is ready. And yet you feel unfinished, not in a physical way, in a quiet, aching way. As if some part of you still wants to be seen, not just looked at.
You don't scratch it. That would crack the illusion. And illusions are delicate things in 1300, much like women. The mist still lingers low in the village, winding around chicken coops and door frames, softening everything it touches, except you. You stay sharp, composed, your chin just a little lifted, as if the sky owes you something. It doesn't, but it never hurts to pretend. The chapel door creaks open. You slip in without sound. The wooden pews groan under bodies already seated, cloaks damp, heads bowed, eyes closed or just pretending. Some are here for God, some are here for warmth. A few, like you, are here because silence is safer than speaking. You slide into a corner pew, away from candlelight. Shadows flatter the powdered. The priest begins his prayer, Latin dripping from his tongue like honey mixed with smoke. You nod in the right places, make the sign of the cross. You've done this every morning for the last 5 winters. And yet, today you feel unseen. It's strange. You've covered every part of yourself that doesn't match the fashion plates from France, the ones Brother Elias hoards in the monastery scriptorium. His drawings show women with tiny chins, blank expressions, and foreheads you could write sermons across. No emotion, no history. Just surface. You've done everything they say is beautiful. Shaved, plucked, painted, smiled only when necessary. And still, you feel like your face is wearing you now, not the other way around. After Mass, the women gather outside the chapel steps. They speak softly about embroidery, bread prices, and which merchant's wife has gone pale in a way that suggests either elegance or illness, or both. You listen. You nod. You keep your lips parted just enough to look dainty, but not to enough to speak, because speaking can ruin everything. Your voice is too deep, your laugh too loud, and last time you dared to say you didn't like rosewater perfume, old Widow Brambley whispered that you were backward, that you didn't know what men liked, as if you're decorating yourself for them. But maybe you are. Or maybe it's just that you've never seen what happens to women who don't try. One didn't bother painting her face, said she had no time for foolishness. Now she scrubs chamber pots in the manor house. Another girl, Isabetta, had a mole near her lip. The local boys called her marked by the devil. You think about that sometimes, how even your skin must pass inspection. Even your flaws must be fashionable. The sun rises slowly now, spreading across the fields in the way butter used to spread on bread. Thick, golden, warm. Not that you've had butter in weeks, not unless you count the church's holy feast, and even then the taste was more hope than cream. You wander home slowly, basket empty, head full. Passing the well, you catch your reflection in its surface. The powder has begun to cake near your eyes. The rouge sits too high. Your lips, painted with a mixture of elderberry juice and candle soot, look tired. Even the illusion is growing weary. You lean down and whisper to the water. Is this what beauty was meant to feel like? The water doesn't answer. It never does. Back home, the air inside is warmer, thanks to your sister Agnes, who's lit the hearth and burned half her eyebrows doing it. She greets you with a grin and a smear of soot across her cheek. She's younger than you, only 13, still untouched by shame, still allowed to look real. She sits on a stool and reaches for your basket. You forget the bread again. You shake your head, then nod. It doesn't matter. There was no money. There is never enough. She laughs, brushing her hair behind her ears. Her face is round, open, alive. Not powdered, not poisoned. Not yet. She asks if you'll help her with her hair later, for church festival. She wants to look fancy. You say you will, and you will. But your stomach twists quietly, because you know what fancy becomes. You know the price of the mirror. Outside, the bell rings again, this time not for prayer, but for warning. Someone's fallen ill. A hush falls over the village. You draw the shutter closed and sit beside the fire, the powder on your skin starting to crackle as the heat warms your cheeks. You wonder again, who made these rules? Who decided that to be respected you must first disappear beneath a mask of chalk and fear? Who decided a pale woman was pure and a flushed one was sinful? Who decided that pain was proof of beauty, that something must hurt to be worth noticing? The fire pops. Agnes hums softly beside you. and for a moment you imagine a world where you don't need powder, where your real skin is enough, where your eyebrows grow, your lashes flutter, your freckles stay. But that is a story for tomorrow night. Take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see. By the next morning, the village is quiet in a different way. Not the peaceful kind of quiet, the listening kind. The hush that comes after someone coughs and doesn't stop. No one says plague, not yet. But the word hangs in the air like chimney smoke, thick, sour, unavoidable. And everyone's eyes avoid each other, just in case the sickness is looking for its next face. You wake with powder still crusted around your hairline. You hadn't washed it off before sleep. No soap, no water, no energy. Now your skin feels tight. Not elegant tight, pain tight. The little mirror near the hearth, the one made from a polished tin scrap, tells a story your neighbors will never see. Your real skin, blotchy, dry, lined with tiny red welts. The lead has started its work beneath the surface. But you keep using it anyway. Because what's the alternative? Looking like yourself? You stare at your reflection. Your eyes are tired in a way that no rouge can cover. You try smiling at the mirror. The smile looks like it doesn't belong to you. Across the room, Agnes is still asleep, mouth open, arms tangled in her blanket like she's wrestling dreams. She's due to start painting her face soon. She asked you about it last week, remember? Do you think I should pluck my brows too? You told her maybe. You didn't say what happens after. She still thinks beauty is a kind of game. You know it's more of a contract. One that no one signed out loud, but everyone enforces. One mistake, one blemish, one curl of hair out of place, and your worth can vanish faster than the paint on your lips. You slip outside. The morning fog hugs the fields, quieting footsteps and thoughts alike. At the far end of the road, two boys toss pebbles at a frog. Behind them, a man covers a cart with a shroud. You catch a glimpse of feet beneath the cloth. Still, pale. You don't ask who. You don't want to know. You sit beside the well again, your face bare for once. It feels like a secret. The cold wind kisses your skin directly, unfiltered, unapproved. And suddenly, you realize something strange. You don't feel ugly. You feel real. You whisper to the water again, even though you know it won't answer. If I stopped painting my face, would they still see me? But the truth is, the mirror was never for you. It was for them. The boys who stare, the women who judge, the priest who smiles longer when your lashes are thinner. They are the audience. You are the stage. And stages must be scrubbed clean, painted, powdered, perfect. Back at the cottage, you wash with cold water. Just water. It stings a little bit, but it also feels like waking up. You rub your skin dry with the edge of a wool tunic that used to be your father's. It still smells like hay and pipe smoke. You hold it to your face longer than you need to. Agnes is up now, brushing her hair by the window. She hums a song that's older than both of you, a melody passed down by women who wore different gowns but fought the same battles. She asked you if you'll help her with her lashes. You hesitate, then nod, because she will try with or without you, and you'd rather she not burn her face doing it alone. You crush elderberry seeds in a pinch of charcoal, mix it with goose fat, the old recipe. You dab it carefully onto her lashes with a splintered reed. She blinks up at you like you've just taught her magic. You haven't. You've only handed her a smaller version of the same chain. But still, she smiles. And for a moment, you remember what it was like before the paint stopped feeling like play and started feeling like prison. Outside, the day carries on. The bell doesn't ring. The fields stay quiet. The chapel doors remain shut. The air tastes like something is coming. Not a storm. Not a battle. Just change. You wonder how long your skin will hold out. How long before the powder eats through, before the rumors start. She doesn't look as pale as last week. Before you are judged not for who you are, but for how well you've hidden her. You sit by the hearth again, evening settling over the windows like dust. You could put on the powder again. You could pretend. But tonight, you don't. Tonight you let your face be what it is. Freckled, flushed, human. Agnes sits beside you, still humming. You close your eyes and lean against your shoulder, both of you too tired to explain why you're quiet. And somewhere between the hush and the heat, you wonder if someday a girl will wake in a world where beauty doesn't mean suffering. But there's a knock at the door. 3 soft taps, hesitant. The kind that arrive before bad news or after it's already too late. You don't move at first. You just sit, your face unpainted, the fire low, the powder pot unopened on the table, cold and cracked. Agnes shifts beside you but says nothing. She knows the sound too. Everyone does. The knock again. You rise, slowly, as if delay might change the news. Outside stands Edith, the midwife's daughter, all elbows and worried eyes. Her sleeves are too short, her boots wet. She looks like she's run most of the way, but still doesn't want to say why. You open the door wider. She whispers a name. You blink. Once. Twice. It's someone you knew. Someone who once told you your skin glowed like candlelight. Now hers has gone gray. You thank Edith, even though the words feel thin. She nods and disappears into the fog again, swallowed without sound. Inside, Agnes looks up. You don't say anything, you just shake your head. She understands. Another one gone. And still no one dares call it what it is. Plague is not a word you say in daylight. It lives in corners, in rumors, in coughing fits and sudden silences. Not everything in this world wears a mask, but danger often does. You sit back down. The fire pops once. The powder stares at you from across the room, silent, patient, expectant, as if it's still waiting for you to become someone worth looking at. But today you can't pretend. because now death doesn't just hover outside the gates. It's begun to count faces. And you don't want to be remembered as powder. You want to be remembered as you. But what is you anymore? Is it your bare skin, flushed from the cold and uneven with time? Or is it the shape others made from you? The high forehead, the plucked brow, the ghost-pale cheeks. You tried to remember the first time someone said you were beautiful. Not painted, not proper, just beautiful. You were maybe 8, covered in dirt, laughing so hard you snorted. Your cousin had just fallen into the pig trough. Your hair was everywhere, your smile full of crumbs. You didn't wear anything expensive. You didn't cover your freckles. And still, someone looked at you and smiled like you mattered. You miss that version of yourself, the one that didn't flinch when someone looked too closely. You glance toward Agnes. She's pretending not to listen, stirring soup that smells like thin cabbage and old hopes. You speak softly. Don't ever think you have to disappear to be seen. She blinks at you, frowns. What? You shake your head. Nothing. But she heard it. She always does. That night, you dream. In your dream, you're walking through a garden, one you've never seen but somehow remember. The air is warm. Your face is clean. You're not wearing anything painted. And no one looks at you like you're a painting that needs fixing. You wake up for the end. You always do. The morning is damp. Your hands ache. The frost has returned. You find your reflection again, in the same battered mirror, in the same warped tin. But today you try something different. You don't reach for the powder. You don't reach for the rouge. You take a cloth. You wet it with water. You wipe your face gently. It doesn't make you beautiful by their rules, but it makes you visible to yourself. You see the skin that's taken you through every winter. You see the crease near your mouth where your laughter used to live. You see the scar near your chin from falling on cobblestones when you were 9. You don't hide any of it. And for the first time in months, you don't feel like hiding you. Outside, the world carries on. Another woman buried. Another child born. Another rumor whispered near the baker's stall. You pass through it all with a quietness that feels new. Not shame, not fear, just calm. A few women glance your way. One raises an eyebrow, what's left of it. Another frowns, eyes scanning your face for paint. You nod to them. They don't nod back. But it doesn't matter. You walk to the market. You buy 2 apples with the last coin you have. One for Agnes, one for you. You eat it slowly, skin and all. It tastes sharp, real. You sit near the chapel, where someone has tied flowers to the gate. Not fancy ones, just weeds mostly, but tied with care. You wonder if someone will ever leave flowers for you. You wonder if they'll remember the powder or the girl beneath it. You close your eyes and listen to the wind move through bare trees. And for once, you don't think about your reflection. You think about your voice. The one you buried under politeness and paint. the one that laughed too loudly, the one that once sang when no one was listening. Maybe it's time to let her speak again. But you don't wear the powder anymore. Not because anyone told you to stop, but because no one really noticed when you did. The first day, they stared. The second day, they whispered. By the third, they stopped looking altogether. And strangely, you don't mind. Your face has returned to you, piece by piece. The color in your cheeks, now unforced. The curve of your brow, no longer plucked into invisibility. Even the tiny crease between your eyes has come back, the one that shows up when you think too hard, or when you care. You hadn't realized how much you missed it. But still, beauty does not leave you alone. Because every day, someone else takes your place. Another girl powders her skin until it peels. Another mother presses rouge into her daughter's cheeks, saying it will help her find a good match. Another merchant's wife orders more whitening paste from the traveling apothecary, the one who never makes eye contact and always smells like vinegar and fear. You hear the same old phrases. She looks so refined. She has the right kind of face. She must be of noble blood. As if nobility lives in your pores and not your story. As if survival isn't enough to make someone worthy of being seen. One day, it rains. Thin, cold rain. Not enough to clean the streets, just enough to make everything soggy. You're at the market, haggling over onions, when a girl you don't recognize brushes past you. She's maybe 16, face powdered, brows shaved, eyes wide and silent. She looks perfect. And then she's gone. Not gone, just swallowed by the crowd. But it lingers. Her face. Blank. Smooth. Empty. Not like a person. Like a suggestion. You wonder how long she's been doing it. And how long before the powder bites through her skin like it did yours. How long before the ghost in her reflection starts speaking louder than her own voice. You think of saying something. You don't. Because there's no easy way to tell a girl she's disappearing. That night, Agnes asks if you think she's pretty. You pause. Not because you don't know the answer, but because you know what the answer might cost her. So you say, "You're strong, you're kind, you laugh when things are awful, you look like someone who survived." She makes a face. "That's not what I asked." "I know," you say, and you leave it at that. She sighs, brushing her hair in the mirror. You see it happen, the doubt begin. She pulls her braid tighter. She frowns at her reflection. And quietly, a part of her starts to vanish too. In the morning, she asks to borrow your old rouge, the pot you haven't touched in weeks. You hand it to her. Not because you want her to use it, but because you know she needs to, just once, to understand why you stopped. By nightfall, she rubs her cheeks raw, trying to take it off. And you say nothing. Some things we only believe when they hurt. A week passes. The days are colder. The wind no longer smells like soil, but like smoke. Someone else dies. A boy this time. Only 10. People stop asking questions. They just start counting fewer names each morning. And yet, the beauty continues. The girls still pluck. The wives still powder. Even the old women wear violet on their lips and say they're just freshening up. It's almost impressive how strong the mask becomes, even when the world is falling apart around it. And you think, quietly, maybe it's not about looking pretty anymore. Maybe it's about control. When everything else slips away, at least your reflection can still lie the way you want it to. Maybe you used to believe that too. One night, you visit the chapel alone. You light a candle for the girl from the market. Not because she's dead, but because she's fading, and someone should notice. You whispered to the flame, "I hope she remembers what her real face looks like." The flame doesn't answer, but it dances a little, like it's thinking. You leave a dried flower beside the altar. A weed, really, from the side of the road. But you picked it, and that makes it enough. The pews are empty. The silence feels bigger than it used to. You sit there for a while, not praying, just existing. No one's watching. So you let your face rest. Unlifted, unsmiling, real. You wonder if there were others before you, women who washed off the lead and didn't replace it, women who let their lashes grow back, who looked in the mirror and said, "No, I'm not doing this anymore." You like to think there were. Maybe one day someone will wonder the same about you. But that is a story for tomorrow night.
There is no morning bell today. No toll, no prayer, no name called. She is simply gone. The girl whose skin turned gray last week, the one who once kissed your cheek at festival, laughing over a shared honey cake. No one speaks of her now. The church door stays shut, the midwife's eyes are red, and the wind carries more than just cold this morning. It carries absence. You pull your shawl tighter, though it isn't the chill that unsettles you. It's the way people look away when a name disappears, the way silence is louder than grief. Agnes hasn't asked about the powder in 3 days. She still brushes her hair in long, neat strokes, but slower now, and always near the window, as if trying to see past something. You haven't worn rouge since the frost arrived. At first, you missed the comfort of the mask. Now, you're not sure who it comforted. The village is quieter each day, fewer voices, fewer footsteps, and more shutters closed, even when the sun is high. You carry water from the well, you sweep the hearth, you stir the pot of cabbage and onion that never seems to taste like anything. The work goes on. That's what women do, isn't it? We continue, even while the world shrinks around us. At midday, you sit beside the well, not to admire your reflection, there's no need for that now, but to remember. The girl who died used to pluck her brows too thin, you recall. She always said it made her look more clever. Sometimes she'd wink at you when the boys walked past. Now the boys say nothing. They've stopped gathering near the square. Their faces look older than their years, and their laughter has dried up like winter apples. A few still talk about beauty, but in lowered voices, with glances over their shoulders, as if even vanity might carry the plague. You see it on their faces, the fear of touching, of breathing, of being. One woman, a merchant's wife, still powders her face thick. She walks through town like a ghost in lace, cheeks pale as flour, lips darkened with elderberry ink. People say she looks untouched, but no one touches her. The mask no longer means safety. It means distance. And somehow, that feels worse. You think about that as you rub your hands together for warmth. They're cracked again. The soap ran out last week, the water bites now. Still, you wash. You wash the pots, the linens, your hands. You scrub until you can no longer feel anything but sting. Not because you think it will save you, but because it's the only thing left that feels like doing something. Agnes hums as she braids her hair. She doesn't wear color anymore. No ribbons, no flowers. You asked her why yesterday. She shrugged and said, "I don't want to look pretty, if pretty means they look at me and think I'm next." You didn't answer. What could you say? You remember being her age, sneaking honey from the pantry, tying scraps of dyed wool into your hair, laughing at your own reflection in the water bucket. Not anymore. That version of you lives in a quieter room now, someplace inside. Still breathing, maybe, but soft, hidden. You go outside at dusk, when the sky turns pewter. Not to be seen, not to look for anyone, just to feel the air move again. The houses are dark. The candle flickers behind one shutter. Someone prays in Latin, fast, low, half hopeful. You walk past them, down the lane to the field. The frost hasn't lifted, and the ground crunches beneath your feet. No one follows. You sit by a stone wall, hands in your lap, and for the first time in weeks, you allow your face to rest. Not perform, not flatter, not prove. Just rest. And it feels strange at first, like walking barefoot after wearing tight shoes. There's freedom in it, but also fear. Because without the paint, the powder, the mask, what are you? And what if no one wants to see that? You trace a line in the dirt with your fingertip, a little circle, a mark, something that says, "I was here." Then you wipe it away. Because you know how easily things get erased. In this world, beauty fades. Voices vanish. Names die without echo. Unless someone remembers. Unless someone speaks. And so, softly. So softly you can barely hear yourself. You begin to say her name. The girl who kissed your cheek. The girl who winked. The girl who plucked her brows too thin and said it made her clever. You whisper her name once. Then again. And again. The wind moves through the trees, quiet, but listening. You don't know if anyone hears, but you do. You remember. And that is enough for tonight. But what happens when you are the one they stop speaking of? That is a story for tomorrow night.
You don't remember her name. Not fully. just pieces. Something with an L, maybe, or a soft E at the end. She lived 3 cottages down by the old pear tree that never bore pears. She wore lace gloves even when the heat pressed through the wool of your gown and made your knees stick together. They said she was beautiful. You suppose she was. But mostly she was quiet. Not shy, not nervous, just edited. Everything about her polished down. Her voice soft, her smile polite, her steps so quiet you'd think she hovered instead of walked. She was what the priests called modest, and what the other girls called lucky. She had that look, the one that made mothers nudge sons, the one that made men say, "She's well kept," like she was a silver plate and not a person. She wore powder, always. Not too much, just enough to glow under candlelight and vanish at dusk. She never laughed loud. She never spoke more than she had to. And then one morning, she didn't come to Mass. You didn't think much of it. Then 2 mornings passed. Then 3. The rumors followed quickly. Fever. Spots. No one saw her body, but the cloth that covered it had stains no rose water could mask. The apothecary passed by her door later that week, humming. He didn't look sad, just full of coin. And still, no one speaks of her, except in compliments. She was so graceful, so proper. She never made a scene. No one said she screamed at the end. But you wonder if she did. You wonder if she begged for her mother, or for a name that felt like hers, or if she simply vanished, like all good girls are taught to. You sit by the fire that evening, the warmth brushing your ankles, the logs crackling soft and slow. Agnes is sewing, her brow furrowed, her lashes longer now. She's not using powder anymore, not since the rash. But she still smooths her hair and lowers her eyes when the neighbors walk past. You haven't told her to stop. Some cages are invisible, and some feel like protection, even when they're not. You think of her again, the girl who disappeared beautifully. You wonder, if she'd spoken louder, would they have listened? Or would they have just called her hysterical, ugly, difficult? It's strange how people only sign kind things after you're too quiet to interrupt them. You watch the firelight flicker against the pot of rouge you haven't thrown away. It still sits on the mantel like a relic or a warning. You keep it not because you need it, but because you did once. And part of you doesn't want to forget how far you've come from needing it. You remember when you used to paint your lips before eating, as if beauty mattered more than bread, as if color on your mouth could distract from the hollow in your belly. Now, you eat in silence. Face bare, mouth full. It's not glamorous, but it's real. You glance outside. The frost has returned. It gathers on the shutters like lace, only colder. The world is quiet again, not from sleep, but from waiting. No one says plague anymore. They don't have to. They just nod at each other across the lane. A quiet sort of agreement. Don't talk. Don't ask. Don't remember. And yet you remember. Not because you want to, but because someone should. You remember her gloves. You remember her powdered chin. You remember the way she folded her hands like someone might sketch her at any moment. You remember that no one came to the door after she died. No one brought flowers. No one lit a candle. They were too afraid. Or too polite. And maybe that's the same thing. You light a candle now. Place it in the window. Not for her name, you've lost that, but for her existence. You whisper to the flame, she was more than powder. You don't say it loud, but loud enough that someone might hear if they're listening from the other side of the veil. Agnes looks up. What did you say? You smile softly. Nothing. Just remembering. She nods, goes back to her stitching. You sit with the silence. And for the first time in weeks, it feels less heavy, like someone's holding part of it with you. You press your fingers to your cheek. Feel the warmth of skin, not paint, not paste, just skin. It's uneven. It's soft. It's yours. And in that moment, you don't want to be beautiful. You want to be heard. But that...
There was a time, not long ago, when you thought the powder made you safe. Safe from judgment, safe from questions, safe from the slow cruelty of being ignored. But you see it differently now. You see it for what it was, not a shield, but a door that slowly closed behind you. And you locked it yourself every morning, one thin layer at a time. No one forced you, not directly. They just rewarded you when you wore it. The compliments, the longer glances, the small nods of approval from women with tighter sleeves and higher foreheads. So you kept going. Powder for the cheeks, ash for the brows, vinegar and bone for the skin. You didn't notice when it stopped feeling like choice. Now, you can smell it on others before you even see them. That chalky, metallic trace, like crushed stone and faint perfume. You pass a girl in the lane who's wearing it fresh. She's careful, proud. Her face is an echo of what yours once looked like. And you think softly, she doesn't know yet. You don't stop her. You don't say anything. Maybe because you're tired. Or maybe because you know that most girls only learn after the ache sets in, the blistering under the eyes, the weight of constant performance. You learned late. Too late, maybe, but just in time to want something else. Now, when you leave your cottage, your face is bare. It's not a protest. It's a quiet unraveling. And at first, no one notices. Then a few do. They stare too long. They squint, confused, as if you've broken a rule they forgot how to explain. Someone even asks, "Are you unwell?" You smile. "No, just clean." They don't laugh. They don't understand that joke.
That evening, you overhear two women talking at the well. One says, "She stopped wearing paint." The other hums, "Oh, poor thing. Lost someone, I expect." That's how they explain it. To them, grief is the only reason a woman would dare show her real face. You want to shout, "No, I didn't lose someone. I found me." But you don't. You just take your water and walk home. Your feet know the path better than your mind now. Every stone and patch of frost, every place you've stumbled. It's strange how memory lives in your bones before it lives in your thoughts. You pass the spot where she used to stand, the quiet girl who vanished. The powder still hangs in the air here, though no one says her name. And you wonder again, how many women disappeared in plain sight before they died? You reach home just as the light begins to dim. Agnes is inside, braiding her hair. Her cheeks are bare. A small mark has appeared near her chin. Nothing serious, just a blemish. You see her notice it. You see her fight the urge to cover it. She glances at you, then lets it be. And your heart aches, not with sadness, but with something closer to relief. Because it means she's still choosing herself. Not always, not easily, but still. She hands you a cup of broth, warm, thin, but comforting. You sit together in silence, wrapped in wool, the fire crackling low. You ask her softly, "Do you miss it?" She doesn't pretend to misunderstand. She shrugs. "Sometimes. It was easier when people smiled." You nod. But it wasn't you they were smiling at. She looks into the fire. Her face glows orange and unpainted. "I know. But it still felt nice." You don't argue. Because she's right. It did feel nice. To be seen. Even if it wasn't real. That's what makes it dangerous. Not the powder. Not the paste. But the way they convinced you to vanish by making it feel like being loved. That night, you sit awake longer than usual. The moon is fat and pale above the thatch. The stars blink like they're trying to remember something. And for a moment, you wish you could speak to the women who will come centuries from now, the ones with electric mirrors and bottled skin. You wonder if they'll recognize you, not by name, not by portrait, but by feeling. The ache, the small, tight smile, the pressure to erase just a little more. You wonder if they'll think they're the first ones to ever be told they're too much, too loud, too plain, too real. You want to whisper to them, "We wore our masks too, not made of silk or pixels, but powder and fear. And the quiet, and tomorrow. But that..."
It starts with a hairline. Not yours, though yours has thinned, slowly, like winter pulling away the last of the leaves. No, this is someone else's. A girl, maybe 17, standing in line outside the butcher's stall. She's pulled her veil back a little too far, showing off what she's shaved. Her forehead gleams, pale and empty. It stretches high above her brows, or where they used to be. She's proud of it. You can tell by the tilt of her chin. No one tells her she looks strange, because strange, here, has become the standard. They say it looks elegant. They say it makes her look wise, noble, pure. But to you, it looks like loss. Not the tragic kind, the quieter kind. The kind that hides beneath compliments. The kind that doesn't hurt until it's too late to grow anything back. You keep walking, hands tucked in your sleeves, face bare beneath your hood. You nod to the baker, who doesn't nod back anymore. Funny how the powdered version of you earned more smiles, even from people who never listened to your voice. You pass the chapel steps. The usual group is gathered, wives with ringed fingers, younger girls who lean too close to the friar's stories, widows watching everything with the calm of someone who's already survived judgment. They glance at you. You glance back. It's not hostility, not exactly. It's discomfort, like they're watching someone forget a script and still keep speaking. You don't wave. You don't smile. You just keep walking. You've begun to understand something. Beauty here is not about attraction. It's about obedience. Powder your skin? Good. Pluck your brows? Good. Shave your forehead? Better. Speak softly, sit still, disappear politely? Best. Agnes asked you last night why noble women never smile in their paintings. You told her the truth, because a smile is a risk. Smiling shows teeth, shows joy, shows a self. And everything about beauty in this world is built to remove the self. At home, she's sewing again, mending a sleeve with her hair tucked behind one ear. She doesn't use paint anymore, not since the rash turned dark, but she still smooths her skin with water and salt, as if she can scrub the uncertainty off her reflection. You want to tell her it's enough, that her face, as it is, carries more stories than any powder ever could. But she's not ready to hear that yet. Instead, you bring her a bowl of stew and sit beside her. Your hands almost touch. Neither of you say much. The fire burns low. You share the silence. Later, she holds up a mirror, the same warped tin scrap you once used. She looks into it, frowns, turns her head, tilts her jaw. She asks you, "Do you think my forehead is too low?" You look at her, at the curls softening near her temples, at the freckle by her brow, at the question in her eyes, not about fashion, but about worth. You say, "No, I think it's the perfect size to hold 1,000 thoughts." She laughs, a real laugh, not the small practiced kind. It's a sound of someone remembering herself. You breathe a little easier. But you know the world won't change overnight. Tomorrow, someone else will sell another jar of powder. Tomorrow, another girl will scrape her brow raw, trying to become invisible in the right way. Tomorrow, another widow will say she's lovely and mean she's obedient. Still, tonight, your face is yours, and Agnes is laughing again. and the fire still burns. You close your eyes. Your skin smells like smoke and salt. Your fingers are stiff, but not from fear. And as you drift to sleep, you whisper into the dark, "I am still here." No powder, no silence, just breath. And that is a story for tomorrow night. You used to think vanishing was sudden. A cart overturns. A fever strikes. A name is whispered and never spoken again. But you see now, disappearance can be slow, gentle even. It can begin with a small choice. One line plucked. One patch covered. One truth softened. And then again. And again. Until what's left is not you. Just a version. You see it clearly today in the eyes of Marianne, the baker's niece. She used to have freckles. You remember them. Dusty little bursts across her nose, like flour flicked by accident. She hated them once. You told her they made her look alive. But now they're gone. Hidden under pearl powder so fine it clings like breath. She smiles as she passes you, but it's not her smile. It's the kind practiced in a mirror, just wide enough to charm, just soft enough to avoid judgment. And you don't say anything, because she doesn't look sad. She looks proud. And somehow that's worse. Inside, your hearth crackles. Agnes is scrubbing her hands with lemon peel, trying to smooth a rough patch of skin. You say nothing. Just sit beside her. She doesn't look up. The winter has deepened. Frost gathers in the corners like thoughts you've been avoiding. You haven't used powder in weeks. The pot still sits there, a ghost of your old self in a pretty little jar. You haven't thrown it away, not because you want it, but because you're afraid that without it, people will forget you entirely. Isn't that strange? That even now, with your face clean and your spine straight, part of you still believes beauty was the only thing they truly saw. You were never taught to be a woman. You were taught to be a figure. Soft edges, soft voice, smooth skin. A quiet kind of perfection. No opinions. No lines. No evidence that you lived. Outside, someone is singing. A girl, maybe 12. Off-key, fearless. She's skipping. Real skipping. With mud on her shoes and her hair in her mouth. She hasn't reached the age yet where mirrors start correcting her. You watch her and feel something between envy and grief. She's not gone yet. Later you walk to the chapel. The pews are mostly empty now. Too many people gone. Too many others too cautious to gather. You sit near the back. The priest doesn't look at you. That used to bother you. Now, it feels like freedom. You rest your hands in your lap, bare, chapped, warm from your sleeves. You watch the candles flicker. You think about the women who came before. What did they look like before the paste, before the razors, before the warnings? Did they laugh harder? Did they leave freckles where freckles wanted to grow? Did they stand in the wind and feel their lashes flutter without glue, without soot? You like to think so. You whisper to the silence, maybe vanishing is a kind of disease too. Not one that takes your breath, one that takes your name. You light a candle. Not for anyone in particular this time, just for those who vanished politely. The ones who wore the paint so long they forgot the shape beneath. The ones who died looking perfect but never got to be known. You leave the flame burning. At home, Agnes is asleep. One hand under her cheek, one leg kicked from the blanket. Her hair has tangled. Her face is blotchy. There's a spot near her lip. And she looks radiant. Not because she's trying, because she isn't. You kiss her brow and pull the blanket up. She murmurs something. You don't catch it. Doesn't matter. You sit by the fire. You sip weak tea. And for a moment, the quiet feels like yours again. No powder. No rules. Just a girl in a room, still choosing not to disappear. And that is a story for tomorrow night.
The wind changes. It's a small thing, a different smell in the smoke, a sharper edge to the cold, but you feel it. In your teeth, in the bend of your neck, in the quiet. Change, like powder, settles without warning. And by the time you notice, it's already touched everything. You wake with your face pressed to your forearm. The warmth of sleep still lingers. So does a dream you can't quite remember. Something about a brush, a mirror, and someone laughing in a way that sounded like crying. You sit up slowly. The room is still. Agnes is already gone. She's been rising earlier lately, slipping out before the streets fill. You think she likes the silence, or maybe she's avoiding something, the way women do when they feel their reflection might betray them. You touch your face without thinking. It's dry, a little rough near the jaw, a small spot near your lip that's healing badly. No one would call it elegant, but it belongs to you. You pull your shawl tighter and move to the hearth. The fire is out, the room colder than usual. You don't relight it. You just sit, hands in your lap, a body remembering what it means to just be. No paint, no polish, no performance. There's a knock at the door. You don't jump. The knock is soft, familiar. It's Marianne. She's holding something wrapped in cloth, a small pot, its edge stained white. It's the good kind, she says, almost shy, from the apothecary near the mill. You don't answer right away. She glances at your bare face, hesitates. I thought maybe you stopped because you couldn't afford it anymore. You smile, gently. No, you say. I stopped because it stopped feeling like mine. She blinks. Oh. Silence. Then she shifts the cloth in her hands. Do you want it anyway? You shake your head. No, but thank you. She stands there a little longer.
You can tell no one said no to her in weeks. Not since she started wearing the pale paste, plucking her brows, and speaking in that soft, deliberate tone people call feminine. Finally, she says, "They told me I looked just like my mother." You nod. "They meant it as a compliment," she adds. You nod again. "That's the hard part, isn't it?" She doesn't answer, just sets the jar on the ground near your door and walks away. You leave it there. By noon, it's gone. Someone else must have taken it. That night, Agnes returns with a mark on her temple, a burn. You don't ask. She doesn't explain, but later, when she's brushing her hair, she whispers, "It slipped." You nod. Another girl at the well said that too last week, about her lead paste. It slipped. As if beauty is a burden with bad footing. You boil water, press a cloth to Agnes's skin. She winces. "It's not bad," she mutters. You say nothing. You just hold the cloth and breathe. Because this is how it happens, isn't it? Not in one moment, but in hundreds. The first time someone tells you your real face is brave. The first time you see your reflection and flinch. The first time you reach for the powder without even realizing you've moved. One layer at a time, until even you forget what you looked like before. You remember the portrait in the chapel, the noble woman with no eyebrows, no smile, and a forehead so tall it looked like it could echo. They say she was beautiful. You think she looks erased. The priest said she died young. You wonder what name they whispered when her face was still warm. What version of her they praised. What real part of her they ignored. Agnes leans into your shoulder. Her hair smells like ash and chamomile. You press your fingers to her hand. She says, "Do you think I'll ever feel pretty without it again?" You take a long breath. "I don't know," you whisper. "But I think you'll feel true. And maybe that matters more." The wind pushes against the shutters. The flame gutters low. Somewhere beyond the village, another cart rolls slowly past the trees, the kind drawn for those who won't return. But here, in this room, there is breath, there is warmth. There is a girl with a burn, and another girl with a story. And the face they praised, it's gone now. But the person underneath, she's still here. And that? You once believed your face was a task, something to polish, to perfect, to manage like bread dough. Knead it just right, or it would rise wrong. Not a face, a performance. Now you sit by the window and let the world look in. No paint, no powder, just skin, stretched and honest. You've stopped counting the days since you stopped. The powder, the rouge, the wax, all of it sits untouched. Not because you made a grand decision, but because the need melted like frost under sun. That, too, was a surprise. You thought you'd miss it. You thought your bare face would make you feel naked. Instead, it made you feel found. Agnes stirs broth over the fire. She hums now, soft, tuneless, distracted. The burn on her temple is healing. She doesn't cover it. Sometimes she catches you watching and grins crookedly, like you've both gotten away with something. You have. You've gotten away with surviving yourselves. And still the world keeps offering you cages, perfume bottles shaped like virtue, white jars labeled refined. A traveling merchant left one on your doorstep yesterday, a sample for the lady of the house. You opened it, just to smell. It was sharp, like vinegar, a little sweet, like memory. You shut the lid and didn't open it again. There's no rebellion in that, just choice, and that is its own kind of revolution. Later, you walk to the stream. The frost has thinned, mud clings to your boots. You pass other women. Most don't speak. Some glance at your face and then away, quickly, politely, like they're not sure how to read what they see. You wonder if they think you've given up. They're wrong. Giving up was what you did every day you tried to please them. Giving up was the powder, the paste, the silence. This is returning. You dip your hands into the water, cold enough to sting. You press it to your cheeks, not to wash, just to feel. The cold reminds you that you're still here. When you were younger, they said beauty was a woman's greatest power, that if you mastered it, if you smiled correctly, walked lightly, painted wisely, you could win anything. But they never told you how much you'd lose. Your voice, your comfort, the shape of your laugh. They trained you to be seen, not heard. To be still, not to live. You were taught to be pretty, but not to exist. That night, you speak the truth aloud. To Agnes, to the air. You say, I used to be afraid that if they saw me without paint, they'd forget me. She looks up, surprised. And now? You shrug. Now, I hope they do. She chuckles, but her eyes are soft. You both eat slowly, as if tasting more than broth. The candle burns low. The moon hangs above the thatch, full and unsmiling. And you realize you've started dreaming again. Real dreams, not ones of mirrors or missing things, but of faces you've never seen, voices you've never heard, a life unfiltered. You remember none of them fully when you wake, just that they felt like yours. And now you lie on your straw mattress, your arms tucked beneath your chest, no rouge on your cheeks, no lead on your skin, You smell of cabbage and smoke. You feel human. And quietly, you think, what if you were never ugly? What if you were just unfinished beneath someone else's idea of beauty? That thought stays with you as you drift off. You carry it, gentle and real, into sleep. And that? They always said beauty was your value. Not your voice, not your thoughts, not the way you learned to stretch one loaf of bread over 3 hungry days. Just beauty. As if that were something you earned by not resisting. They didn't say it like a threat. They said it like a blessing. Keep your skin white. Keep your voice low. Keep your eyes soft. Each line delivered with love, or the closest thing to it, but love that needed you to shrink, to smooth, to vanish. You never asked who decided those rules. You were too young, too busy trying to fit inside them. But now the silence stretches thinner. You can hear what lies beneath it, and it's not kindness. You wake to a pale sky, frost on the inside of the shutters, the kind of morning where even the birds think twice before singing. Agnes is already gone. Again. She's been walking more lately. Not far, just enough. Sometimes you watch from the doorway as she turns the corner, braids swinging, coat too big, like she's trying to find the place her face will finally belong. You don't follow. You trust her to come back with herself still attached. And if she doesn't, if the powder tempts her again, you'll still be here. Not to stop her, just to remind her she's not alone. That's something no one ever told you when you wore the paint. You were praised, you were admired, but you were alone. Because praise for beauty never comes with protection, only permission to disappear politely. You stir the coals, boil water, watch the sun rise behind a blur of chimney smoke. It used to feel like the beginning of a task. Now it feels like presence. Outside, the frost has lifted. You walk the long way to the market. There's a new merchant by the well, a woman this time, older, wrapped in layers that smell of rosemary and travel. She calls out offers in a voice like gravel. Sweetwater balm, rose petal salve, powder for faces that matter. That last one makes you pause. Faces that matter. You approach her slowly. She holds up a jar. Best in the village, keeps you young. You glance at her. Her own face is lined, not hidden, not healed, just lived in. You ask, "Do you use it?" She laughs. "God, no. I sell it." You don't buy anything. But before you leave, you say, "You're beautiful." She blinks. You say it again. Not because you look young, because you look real. And you walk away. It's not a performance. It's not even defiance. It's just the truth, spoken without fear. At home, Agnes is back. She's mending your apron. She looks up. Your cheeks are red. You touch them. They are. Not from paint, but from cold, from weather, from life. She smiles. They suit you. Later, by the fire, she says, "Did you know there's a saint who wore a veil just so men wouldn't look at her?" You nod. They say that was modesty. She frowns. Maybe it was just exhaustion. You both fall quiet. Because it's possible, isn't it, that half the rules were just survival dressed as grace? That beauty was never about joy, only about control. And silence was the price of being accepted. But now, as you both sit in the dim orange light, the silence feels different. Not forced, not punished. Just soft, shared, safe. You rest your hand on Agnes's, and for once it doesn't feel like you're giving something away when you speak. It feels like claiming something back. And that, the years they told you, must never leave a mark. No lines, no sag, no creases near your mouth where a laugh might have once lived. You could grow older, yes, quietly, but not visibly. A woman who aged was a woman who had failed to maintain the illusion. And illusion was everything. You were not meant to age, only to obey. So they gave you rules. Cover the gray with soot or crushes of walnut bark. Soften the cheeks with vinegar and milk. Soak your hands in lemon juice to erase the calluses, even if they came from honest work. You did all of it, not because you wanted to, because you thought you had to. Because somewhere along the way, someone convinced you that beauty was not about looking like yourself. It was about looking like you hadn't lived. But you have. God, you have. The scar on your shin from the time you fell running down the orchard path. The lines by your eyes from squinting in candlelight while stitching by hand for hours. The little hollow under your chin that no paint could ever quite reach. They are not flaws. They are your record. You wake now with aches in your legs that weren't there years ago. Your back tugs when you bend. Your hands are slower. But you move anyway. You no longer try to erase the evidence. Let the girls chase the illusion. Let the jars and creams and salves promise their impossible promises. You have lived past the need for permission. Agnes isn't there when you wake. There's a note, scratched with coal on a torn corner of parchment. To the apothecary, I'll ask about the salve. Don't worry, I won't buy it. You smile. A month ago, she wouldn't have added that last line. She would have still been tempted by the promise of smooth skin and invisible pores. But not now. Now she knows there's more power in being seen as you are than in being praised for being a painting. You wash your face in cold water, and the cold makes your skin sting a little, not unkindly. You remember suddenly what the merchant said yesterday. Powder for faces that matter. And you thought, how strange. as if only some faces deserve attention, as if a face without paint doesn't carry memory. You walk outside, past the well, down the path where the reeds bend in winter. A group of younger girls gathers by the edge of the chapel square. They're practicing. Not songs, not lines from prayers, practicing expressions. One girl holds up a piece of burnished tin like a mirror. They take turns looking. Lift your brows like this. No, soften the jaw, not too much. Don't laugh like that, it makes your eyes small. They're 11, maybe 12, and already they've learned the rules. You watch them and feel the cold differently now. Not on your skin, but under it. Not because they're doing anything wrong, but because no one told them they could stop. You think about walking over, about saying something. But what would you say? That they're enough? They won't believe you. Not yet. They need time. And time is the one thing beauty tells them they don't have. So, you walk on. Past the chapel, past the shop that still sells pale powder in blue glazed jars. Past the window where a woman once died with her skin flaking from arsenic cream. You remember her name now. Lucette. She was quiet, always wore gloves. Her skin was pale not just from powder, but from something inside her slowly leaving. They buried her with a painted face. Even in death, she wasn't allowed to look tired. That night you ask Agnes about her trip. She says, "The apothecary offered a salve. Said it would lighten the burn mark." You wait. "I told him no," she adds. You nod. "I said it was a memory, not a mistake." You smile. It's both, and still yours. You share a bowl of thin lentil stew, the fire warm on your legs. She watches the flames and says, "Do you think it'll get easier? Feeling enough?" You take a long breath. "I don't know if it gets easier, but it gets clearer." She's quiet for a long time. Then, "I want to see a face with lines and not think it's ruined." You say, "Then start with your own." And she laughs, a quiet, surprised little laugh, not because she doesn't believe you, but because part of her finally does. Outside, frost climbs the windows. Inside, the candle gutters, and you wrap the wool blanket around your shoulders. Your skin is dry, your nails uneven, your lips slightly chapped. And none of it needs fixing. You look at Agnes, curled by the hearth, and you think, maybe they were wrong. Maybe you were never meant to be perfect, just real. And that.
The village wakes slowly. A fog has settled in, not thick, but enough to blur the edge of the world. The rooftops seem to float above it, and the road looks softer somehow, as if it's forgotten how to be hard. You step out into the mist and pull your shawl tighter.
You've stopped worrying what people see when they look at you. You've learned they never really saw you anyway. Only the mask, the painted face, the carefully plucked lines, the lie they called ladylike. You don't miss it. You miss how simple it was sometimes, how automatic, how you didn't have to answer the question, who am I if I am not beautiful? But the answer comes more easily now. You are someone who wakes up with tired knees and a steady hand. Someone who remembers names. Someone who makes a stew out of nearly nothing. Someone who can still laugh, even when it isn't charming. That has to count for something. At the market, someone stops you. It's Edith, widow, childless, with a memory like an axe. She squints at your face, not unkindly. "You look well," she says, after a long pause. "Less like a statue these days." You smile. "It's the cold." She shrugs. "Maybe. Or maybe you've just stopped trying to look like someone else." You're not sure whether to take it as a compliment, but it feels like one. Later, you pass by a row of laundry hung low, chemises and underthings swaying slightly in the damp. A girl is scrubbing her neck with lemon water and milk. You recognize the motion. It stings. You used to do it every third morning. "Don't want a dirty neck," she says to no one. "That's what they notice first." You want to tell her the truth. They only notice the parts they're taught to find fault with. But instead you say, "It's already clean." She looks up, confused, maybe even a little afraid. No one says that out loud. Not here. You keep walking. By the chapel, someone has posted another flyer. Hand-scratched, uneven, a merchant's promise. "Restore your glow. Pure mercury mix. Nobility approved." You stare at it. You think about how many women read these words and feel hope. Not because they believe them, but because they want something to believe in. Agnes told you once that hope, even false hope, feels better than hunger. And maybe beauty was just another hunger. But it never fed you. It fed the people who sold the jars. It fed the men who smiled at the painted girls, then turned away when the rouge ran. It fed the church, which taught that a pure body was one that never asked to be real. You remember Lucette again. Not her powdered cheeks, not her gloves. You remember the day she laughed, just once, when a dog stole her meat pie. It was the last time you saw her without a mask. You wish you'd laughed with her. Instead, you'd warned her not to smile too wide. It could crack the paint. You carry that now. But guilt is no use if it doesn't bloom into something better. So you teach Agnes how to scrub her face gently. Not to bleach, not to vanish, just to care. You teach her to touch her own cheeks like she means it. She listens. She watches herself in the mirror, not like someone trying to vanish into it, but like someone trying to recognize what was always there. And one night she says, "I think I'm done chasing it." You ask, "Chasing what?" She says, "That other girl, the perfect one who never lived."
You nod. I think I mourned her, she adds. But I don't miss her. That night you lie down together near the fire. No paint, no salves. Agnes reads aloud from a borrowed prayer scroll. She changes the words. Where it says, "Make me clean," she says, "Make me whole." It feels better that way. You fall asleep with the soft rasp of her voice in your ear and the weight of wool on your chest. You dream of your own face, not from memory, but from the inside. You are looking out of it, and it feels like home. You wake to a room that smells like broth and ash and cold air. And you think, her real face was never the problem. The world just wasn't ready to see it. But now, maybe it's learning. And that is a story for tomorrow night.
The mirror was always cold, not just to the touch, but in its judgment. Warped, speckled tin, enough to reflect your outline, never your whole. Enough to catch your flaws, never your grace. You remember standing in front of it years ago, tilting your head just so, powder clinging to the fine hairs along your jaw. You remember staring into that little piece of metal and asking it a question it could never answer. Is this enough? It never was, because the mirror was not made for truth. It was made to enforce the lie that you are only worth what others admire, the lie that a good woman is a pale woman, that a silent woman is a safe one, that beauty is proof of virtue, and aging its betrayal. You were never told who built that mirror, but you suspect it wasn't someone who looked like you. Now, as you sit near the hearth, you think about how rarely you look at it anymore. Agnes has stopped using it too. Instead, she uses her hands, fingers across cheekbones, thumbs near her temples. She learns her face by feel, like someone learning to read again after the letters changed. You watch her. She doesn't ask you how she looks anymore. She asks how she seems. That matters more. Outside, the thaw has begun. Mud where there was snow. The chickens make curious wet sounds in the morning. The wind smells faintly of something green beneath the rot. Change, real change, is slow. It comes like spring, shy, unsure, almost foolish at first. But it comes. You gather herbs today, not for skin, not for blush, for soup, for warmth, for healing the inside. A woman at the well calls to you. Her voice wavers. You haven't been at chapel. You nod. I pray at home. She frowns. They say you've abandoned grace. You meet her gaze. Calm. No, I've just stopped mistaking grace for silence. She doesn't reply, only crosses herself twice, like she's warding off something contagious. You smile anyway, because she's still watching a version of you that no longer exists. And you?
You are watching yourself for the first time. That evening, Agnes shows you something. It's a little drawing, childish, scratched in charcoal on scrap cloth. A face, lopsided, freckled, smiling too wide. You ask, "Who is it?" She says, "It's what I see when I look at me." It's beautiful. Not because it's accurate, because it's honest. You pin it above the hearth. Later, you clean the mirror. Not to see yourself in it, but to give it less power. The glass shines, the metal warps. Your reflection swims across it. Not quite yours, not quite foreign. You say aloud, "You don't own me anymore." And the mirror, being only a mirror, says nothing. But it doesn't argue. Agnes joins you by the fire. Her skin is bare, her lips chapped, her presence soft as wool. She asks, "Do you think we'll ever stop being afraid of being seen?" You say, "Maybe not, but I think we'll stop apologizing for it." Outside, the moon is thin, the kind of moon you only notice when you're finally looking up. You think about Lucette, about the little girls by the well, about your mother, who wore her powder even in the night. You think about all the women who stood in front of mirrors and wondered why they couldn't see themselves. And then, gently, you let that thought go. You spent enough years wondering. Now, you're ready to remember. And that,
You used to think modesty meant humility, soft voices, lowered lashes, measured words. But that was never what they wanted. What they wanted was smaller. Smaller faces, smaller space, smaller thoughts. They didn't call it obedience, they called it grace. They didn't call it disappearance, they called it modesty. But modesty here meant erasure. No bold colors, no raised voices, no laughter that rang too long, and no face, not your real one, only the version sanded down by powder and paste, corrected by silence. They taught you how to hold yourself back. They taught you that your reflection wasn't yours. It belonged to their judgment. And for years, you believed them. But now as you tie back your hair with your own hands, fingers clumsy and honest, you feel the difference. This isn't modesty. This is presence. You walk to the baker's stall. He nods today, not because your cheeks are rouged, they aren't, but because your chin is high. You don't smile. He doesn't expect you to. That's new. Agnes joins you with an apple in her palm, red and a little bruised. She bites into it without checking a mirror. You almost laugh. "Did you ever notice," she says, "how no one ever asked men to be modest in their appearance?" You raise your eyebrows. They just get to look like themselves. Hair where it grows, lines where they come, and no one flinches. You nod. No one expects them to apologize for it. You pass a group of girls. One has plucked her eyebrows so thin they've disappeared. She looks at Agnes, then at you, then away. Not in shame, in confusion. as if she's seeing two women who chose not to follow the map and somehow still survived. You don't say anything, but you make sure your pace slows just enough for her to notice the softness of your face, the humanness of it. Back home, Agnes is sewing. Her thread catches and snaps. She doesn't swear. She presses her thumb to her lips and sucks the spot without drama. You watch her. You realize she hasn't worn powder in weeks. She hasn't once asked if she looks tired. She looks whole. Later, she pulls out something folded and delicate, one of the old veils, thin and soft, worn near the edges. She holds it up like it's a question. "Are you keeping it?" you ask. She shrugs. "I used to think it made me mysterious." You smile. "Did it?" She sighs. "No, it made me silent." She places it back in the drawer, not like treasure, like a relic. You sit together by the fire, legs tucked under. You sip broth that tastes mostly of salt and memory. Outside, someone is singing. A child. Off-key. Loud. No one shushes her. Agnes says, "Do you ever think we're too old to care about beauty?" You shake your head. "No. I think we're just finally old enough to define it." The fire cracks. One log shifts. You look at each other. Not to compare, just to see. And what you see is this. Two women. Two faces. Two lives made real, not polite. No mask, no veil. Just scars, freckles, color, and bone. The truth of you. Not modest. Present. And that is a story for tomorrow night. No one ever said the goal was to be happy. They said, be pretty. But pretty was never for you. Pretty was a disguise, a shield, a trap, a signal that you were good, quiet, worth keeping. It was never about joy. It was about being bearable. Because a woman in this world could not afford to be loud or clever or angry, not unless she was beautiful enough to excuse it. And so, from the time you could walk, you were handed the tools of survival, the tweezers, the powders, the warnings. Don't look tired. Don't look plain. Don't look real. You did your best. And for a time, the disguise worked. They smiled at you. They called you lovely. They listened just long enough to remind you how little they heard. But now the disguise has cracked. Not in anger, not in protest, just in truth. You wake with sleep lines on your cheek and don't smooth them away. You let your hair fall uneven. You wear your age like a soft layer of warmth, not a flaw to be filed down. Agnes doesn't wear gloves anymore. She used to hide her hands, rough from work, scarred from a burn. But today, she kneads bread bare-handed, fingers dusted with flour, humming to herself with the contentment of someone who finally stopped trying to earn approval. You help her shape the loaves, and for the first time, you realize beauty might not be what they said it was. Maybe beauty is not being noticed. Maybe it's being known. Later, you walk through the village, past the house where the new apothecary has set up shop. A girl stands near the door, twisting her fingers, clutching a little purse. She's 13, maybe, pale, too pale, powdered over freckles that haven't finished blooming. You pause. She looks at you and tries to smile, but it's the kind of smile that asks a question. Am I doing it right? You walk closer. Her hands are trembling. You remember that feeling, standing in front of a shop that promised transformation, not knowing whether you wanted to be beautiful or just accepted. You nod at her. She looks relieved, like maybe she's not invisible. You say nothing, but as you walk away, she follows you. Not literally, just with her eyes. And maybe for a moment, she sees something besides the powder, something besides the disguise. Back home, the wind rises, the shutters creak. Agnes lights the lamp and says, "Do you remember when we used to hide the mirror at night?" You nod. You thought it would scare away your dreams. It didn't. It only made them more desperate. You spent so long dreaming of faces that weren't yours, of versions of yourself more polished, more pleasing, more tolerable. Now your dreams are different. You dream of salt, of walking barefoot through mud, of someone calling your name, not gently, but like they need you. No one ever needed the painted version of you, only the real one. Agnes brings you a bowl of soup. She's added herbs, not for flavor, for meaning. Each one has a name: truth, courage, warmth. She doesn't say that out loud, but you know. You drink slowly. The wind shifts. The shutters thud softly in their frames. You feel old tonight, not in years, but in knowing. And strangely, that's a comfort, because age was never the enemy. The disguise was. And now, finally, it's gone. And what's left? A face that tells the story. A life that doesn't need explaining. Hands that don't flinch. A mirror that no longer frightens. You say it softly to the flame. I was never meant to be a picture. I was meant to be a person.
There was a time when you believed being invisible was a virtue. They didn't say it like that. They used softer words. Graceful, humble, well-behaved. But what they meant was small. They taught you how to lower your voice, how to take up less room, how to nod when you wanted to shake your head, how to smile when you felt nothing. And they taught you how to vanish, one powdered layer at a time. Every beauty rule was another quiet erasure. Don't let your skin darken in the sun. Don't let your cheeks grow round. Don't let your laugh show your teeth. And so, you folded yourself in. You painted the face they praised. You wore the colors they expected. You bit back the words that might have made them uncomfortable. But none of that was living. It was performance. And now you're too tired for it. Too wise. Too present. You stir the porridge slowly, letting it thicken. Agnes sets the table.
She places the bowls down like she's placing something sacred. Not because the meal is special, but because you are. Neither of you says it aloud, but the quiet between you has changed. It used to be silence. Now it's peace. Outside, children play in the street. One of them runs past, hair wild, skirt torn. She's shrieking with laughter. No one scolds her. You smile and close the shutters. You remember the way your own mother used to press her hand to your shoulder when you laughed too loudly. "Quiet now," she'd whisper. "People are watching." But what if that had never been a warning? What if it had been a celebration? What if someone had said, "Yes, let them see. Let them know you're alive"? You think of all the times you sat perfectly still in that wooden chair, hands folded, spine straight, waiting for approval. It never came. Not the kind that fills you, only the kind that quiets you. But now you know that kind of approval was a trick, a hollow kind of praise that kept you chasing thinness, chasing whiteness, chasing youth, chasing silence. You've stopped. You didn't fall. You didn't unravel. You just stopped. And in the stillness that followed, something bloomed. A kind of self you didn't know was still inside you. Rough-edged, tender, honest, not polished, real. That night, you and Agnes sit on the stoop. The stars are faint, the air is soft. She pulls her braid loose and lets it fall. You notice she's not hiding the burn scar on her temple anymore. Not covering it, not excusing it. It's just part of her. Like the freckle on your lip, or the way your right eyebrow never quite matched the left. Marks of living. She looks over. You ever think about how many girls disappeared trying to become someone else's idea of beautiful? You nod. I think about how many of us are still trying, you whisper. She says, "Not us." And you believe her. You touch your own cheek. Rough, warm, yours. You think for the first time in your life that you'd rather be seen than praised. You were taught to vanish, but you have decided to stay. And that, it was never really about cleanliness. They said it was. They said pale skin meant purity, that a freckle was a flaw, that brown was for the peasants, that sunburn was shameful, proof you'd worked. But that was never the truth. It wasn't about the sun. It was about control. They told you to stay inside, to wear veils and hats, to powder your face until it looked like chalk. They said, don't let the world touch you. But what they meant was, don't let the world know you live here. Your skin, your real skin, was never the sin. Their fear was. Fear of what it meant when a woman looked alive, when she glowed with sweat instead of powder, when she bore the sun's kisses like badges. Because that kind of woman didn't ask permission. She didn't hide. She didn't beg. She existed. And you do now too. You step outside barefoot, morning dew still clinging to the grass. You feel it, wet, cold, real. Agnes is hanging linens. She's humming again, something old, something wordless. You glance at her arms, freckled, unhidden. The sun hasn't quite risen yet, but it's there, waiting. You tilt your face toward it. Once, you would have flinched. Now you let the light fall. You wonder how many years you lost staying out of its reach. You wonder how many girls never even knew what sunlight on skin felt like. Not because they were imprisoned, because they were taught to be afraid of being seen. You want to go back to that young version of you and pull her outside, to tell her you are not dirt, you are earth, you are not flawed, you are formed. But that version of you is gone, and this version, the one standing in the mud with bare feet and a steady spine, she knows. She knows what was taken. She knows what she reclaimed. You head to the stream, the same one from all those months ago, the same one where you used to wash your painted face and pray the cold would hide the lies. You kneel, cup the water. This time, there's no hiding. You press it to your cheeks not to purify, but to remember. Your skin drinks it in, and it does not apologize. Later, you dry herbs with Agnes. She tells you a story about a noblewoman who died trying to lighten her arms with vinegar and lead. Did it work, you ask? She shrugs. No one remembers her arms, only that she died ugly and desperate. You both sit for a while in silence. Then Agnes says, I don't want to be remembered for how I looked. You reply, you won't be. You'll be remembered for how you made others feel. She smiles. Good. That I can live with. You reach out and touch her forearm. It's warm, sun-dappled, a little uneven in tone. Beautiful. That night, you don't light a candle. You let the dark come in and settle around you like soft wool. You close your eyes. You don't need to be seen anymore. You only need to be true. Your skin is not perfect, but it is yours, and it carries you. It tells your story, even when your mouth forgets the words. And tonight, that's enough, because now you know. You were never dirty. You were never wrong. You were never too much. You were simply taught to shrink. But you didn't. You grew. You still are. And that, it was never really about cleanliness. They said it was. They said pale skin meant purity, that a freckle was a flaw, that brown was for the peasants, that sunburn was shameful, proof you'd worked. But that was never the truth. It wasn't about the sun. It was about control. They told you to stay inside, to wear veils and hats, to powder your face until it looked like chalk. They said, don't let the world touch you. But what they meant was, don't let the world know you live here. Your skin, Your real skin was never the sin. Their fear was. Fear of what it meant when a woman looked alive, when she glowed with sweat instead of powder, when she bore the sun's kisses like badges. Because that kind of woman didn't ask permission. She didn't hide. She didn't beg. She existed. And you do now too. You step outside barefoot, morning dew still clinging to the grass. You feel it, wet, cold, real. Agnes is hanging linens. She's humming again, something old, something wordless. You glance at her arms, freckled, unhidden. The sun hasn't quite risen yet, but it's there, waiting. You tilt your face toward it. Once you would have flinched. Now you let the light fall. You wonder how many years you lost staying out of its reach. You wonder how many girls never even knew what sunlight on skin felt like. Not because they were imprisoned, but because they were taught to be afraid of being seen. You want to go back to that young version of you and pull her outside, to tell her, you are not dirt, you are earth. You are not flawed, you are formed. But that version of you is gone. And this version, the one standing in the mud with bare feet and a steady spine, she knows. She knows what was taken. She knows what she reclaimed. You head to the stream, the same one from all those months ago. The same one where you used to wash your painted face and pray the cold would hide the lies. You kneel, cup the water. This time, there's no hiding. You press it to your cheeks, not to purify, but to remember. Your skin drinks it in, and it does not apologize. Later, you dry herbs with Agnes. She tells you a story about a noblewoman who died trying to lighten her arms with vinegar and lead. Did it work, you ask? She shrugs. No one remembers her arms, only that she died ugly and desperate. You both sit for a while in silence. Then Agnes says, I don't want to be remembered for how I looked. You reply, you won't be. You'll be remembered for how you made others feel. She smiles. Good. That I can live with. You reach out and touch her forearm. It's warm, sun-dappled, a little uneven in tone. Beautiful. That night, you don't light a candle. You let the dark come in and settle around you like soft wool. You close your eyes. You don't need to be seen anymore. You only need to be true. Your skin is not perfect, but it is yours, and it carries you. It tells your story even when your mouth forgets the words. And tonight, that's enough. Because now you know, you were never dirty. You were never wrong. You were never too much. You were simply taught to shrink. But you didn't. You grew. You still are. And that... There's something strange about peace. It doesn't come the way you thought it would. Not with applause, not with fireworks, not even with tears. It comes quietly, like warm air under the door, like bread rising in a bowl, like the sound of your own breath, finally unbothered. You wake slowly, not because you're tired, but because you don't have to rush. Agnes is already outside. You hear her voice, low, talking to the chickens again. She doesn't know you're listening. She sings a little, off-key. You smile. You stretch. And for the first time in, maybe ever, your body doesn't feel like something you need to fix. It's not soft in the wrong places. It's not too tired or too rough. It's just you. You wash your face with cold water, but not to erase anything, just to greet the day. There are no visitors, no markets, no rituals today. Just time. You sit at the table and trace the grain of the wood with your fingertip. This table has seen you in paint, in panic, in silence. Now it sees you as you are. You run a thumb along the edge. A splinter catches, then slips away. The kettle hisses. Outside, the sun rises with no performance. It just is. And so are you. Agnes returns with a basket of greens and says, "I had a dream we were old." You look at her, amused. "We are." "No," she says, "older, with gray hair and loose teeth and strange hats, but we were laughing." You nod. "Sounds nice." She places the greens in a bowl. "No one was watching. We were just there." You wonder aloud, maybe we always were, just buried under layers of what they told us to be. Agnes shrugs. "Maybe, but I think we found each other again." You sip tea. It's bitter, no honey, no milk, but it tastes like honesty. You talk little that morning. There's no need to explain the quiet, because this is what you always wanted, but didn't know how to name. A life where you could exist without performance. No more tilting your head just right. No more checking the mirror before a door opens. No more swallowing your opinions just to appear gentle. The girls in the village still paint their faces. You don't blame them. Hope is a hard thing to give up, even when it's made of chalk and crushed beetle shells. But some of them look at you longer now. They don't ask questions. Not yet. But they notice. And maybe that's where change begins. Not in argument, but in quiet contrast. You're not here to convince them. You're here to be a possibility they didn't know existed. You're here to remember. Because forgetting, that was always their power. They erased the ones who didn't follow the rules. They turned rebels into cautionary tales. They named women like you difficult, bitter, hysterical. But you were never bitter. You were tired. Tired of being small, tired of being sweet when you were scared, tired of being praised for disappearing. Now you are seen, not for beauty, not for perfection, for presence. You light a candle after sundown, not to mask the dark, just to sit with it. The flame dances, and you stare at your own hands. They are yours. They have aged. They have scarred. They have carried, stirred, slapped, comforted. You place them flat on the table and whisper, "I forgive you." Not to the hands, to yourself. The girl who powdered, the girl who plucked, the girl who flinched. She was trying. She did her best. And now you are free because she survived. You rise. You close the shutters. You breathe in. Long, slow, deep. You don't need to be remembered as beautiful. You don't need a statue or a song. You just need to have lived truthfully once. And you did. They may forget your name, but they can't unmake what you reclaimed. You were always enough. They just couldn't see it. But you do. Now. Finally. And that is the end of the story. Sleep well.